Hi, this is Thermite. I'm going to be showing you a couple of different ways of using salt and watercolors together to make some cool artwork. One method we can use is to take some glue, just ordinary white glue, and start by drawing a design on a piece of white paper. Once you've drawn a design, the next thing to do is to sprinkle some salt over top of the wet glue. You want to do this reasonably neatly. I'm using a cookie sheet here to help keep the salt contained. Make sure that you cover the glue completely, but don't just pile the salt on top, because if you do, that's going to make it a little bit more challenging to get neat edges later on. Shake the extra salt off of the paper. The next step is to add color. I'm just using ordinary watercolor paints, and for this project I like to use quite a bit of water, and I also like to do my best to avoid getting salt into the paints themselves. So I'm using a plastic lid to mix the paint up. That way I can mix colors and I can try to prevent the salt from getting into my paint. Here you see I use a little bit too much water, but that's fine, it's still going to work. I'm just going to mix up the paint dark enough to actually show up on the salt. The salt is going to soak up the paint quite well, and you'll notice that the colors will start to run a little bit farther than where you brush them on. That means that you can either blend your colors before you put them on the salt, or you can just put two different colors close to each other and they will start to blend into each other on the picture itself. If you have too much water anywhere, you can use the edge of a paper towel to soak up the extra water. It will take some of the color away as well, so be aware that any place that you remove water, the color is going to end up a little bit lighter. I let my picture dry overnight, and this is what it looks like the next day. If you want, you could leave it like this, or you can rub off the extra salt. And this is what it looks like after the extra salt is removed. So that's one way of using salt and watercolor together to make a picture. Another way that you can use salt while you're painting is by sprinkling it right on top of wet paint. So start by making a painting. Make sure that whatever part of the painting you're going to be sprinkling with salt is still quite wet. The salt will give the paint a speckled finish after it has a chance to dry. You can sprinkle all of the painting or just a little bit. Once the paint is dry, brush all the extra salt off of the paper. You can see that where there was salt, the paint now looks speckled. This will work differently on different colors and brands of paint. It'll also work differently with different kinds of salt. So this is something you can experiment with when you're painting. So there you have it. Two different ways of using salt with watercolors. Time for a bonus painting. This painting isn't salty, but it is one of my favorite things to paint. A night sky with stars. I'm using a different kind of paint here. These paints are ones that are a little bit less see-through, so they work better for making starry skies. For this next part, I'm working in a cardboard box because it can get kind of messy. I splatter my stars on either using a paintbrush or using a toothbrush. You can use your finger, you can use a popsicle stick. There's lots of different ways to get a fun splattered effect. The end result looks something like this. The white stars are the ones that were made with a paintbrush, and the yellow ones are the ones that were made with a toothbrush. So that's our bonus painting of a starry night sky.